Welcome back, everybody. I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Michael Devine, whose new show on HBO, starring Hugh Grant, whose hair I share, starring also Donald Sutherland, and my God, her name escapes me.
Hmm.
Oh, the main character, her name escapes me at the moment. Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman. Yeah.
Nicole
There you
Kidman.
go.
Thank you. Yes, we're not going to do a take two. I want to show people how we do this live. So Nicole Kidman is in there as well, and so is Michael. That show is on HBO. It's called The Undoing. Please welcome to the program, Mike Devine.
Thank you very much, Alan. And how could you forget her name? She's Nicole
I
Kidman.
I can't believe it.
No, I hear you. You got a bunch of names floating through your head at any time. I understand.
And I try not to write things down, which is a stupid thing because I definitely have a ton of notes and I have things that I want to ask you about, but I just didn't write down her name. Hugh Grant was in my mind just because I'm looking at my hair, and then it went all south from there.
You
So
definitely have Hugh Grant hair.
yeah, I love Hugh Grant. My wife actually hates when I go and watch Hugh Grant movies because my actor ear immediately copies the accent, and then I stay in that
Ah.
for 2 or 3 days, and she just does not like it. So
I can understand that.
I can't. I love it. So do my kids. So Hugh Grant, if you're watching, you're most welcome. We can share hair stories and do. I'll do my best to do a terrible British accent, and you can laugh at it.
He was fantastic, to be honest. I don't want to skip too far ahead, but just while we're on the topic of Hugh Grant, what a nice guy. I was super impressed by him. I mean, just to be that much of a celebrity, that talented, that well known, but to be that nice a guy, he's so down to earth. I was so pleased. He made it a point, and I was very impressed by this.
Mhm.
He learned everyone's names and he called them by their names, which it's not that's not easy to do.
No, and that's a big set that you were on. So yeah, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
I have not met Hugh. I haven't had a chance to interview him yet, but I on the Instagram where we're connected, you see me posting quotes of actors, and I posted quite a few from him. And in just looking at his quotes, kind of gives you a little bit of a understanding of what his thinking is. And he doesn't seem like this guy who views himself above everybody else. He seems really as a grounded and good guy. So I'm happy that you
Right. Yeah, very genuine.
Very cool. And again, Nicole Kidman, whose name we forgot. Sorry, Nicole, if you're watching this. Well, not sorry if you're watching this. Sorry for forgetting your name. Nicole Kidman is wonderful. That role, and again, I saw the trailer even before I started doing background and really diving into your role there. I just like everybody else. I saw the trailers and I saw the advertisement while I was watching whatever else I was watching on TV, and just seeing the trailer, I saw just the amount of the emotional work that she had to do.
Yes.
What was it like to witness it in a scene with her?
It was incredible from an actor's point of view. I paid very close attention.
Mm-hmm.
She stays in character almost throughout while the camera's rolling and off. There's so much preparation that I saw go into it, especially the episode you're going to see this weekend. It's extremely emotional, and we have some very intense scenes. And the more the scene progressed, the deeper she got. And it was also very interesting, and it could be interesting for those actors listening.
Mm-hmm.
As the scene progressed, and also as the camera got closer, she was able to adjust her performance both in tandem with the progression of the scene where it goes from beat to beat, but also from a practical standpoint, because when we started, it was, even though it's a small room, we're fairly wide. And when you start wide, her performance, you're able, actually, like I am right now, you're able to use your hands, you're able to gesture. It's a slightly more theatrical. And I don't know if she was consciously doing this, but I was watching her. I'm like, okay, now she's a bit larger. And even though we played the same lines, the same dialogue, her performance was larger. Then the camera moved a bit closer, and then her performance was adjusted. And as you've seen, in The Undoing, our wonderful director, Suzanne Beer, uses very, very close camera angles. I mean, up to including someone's eye or mouth. It's super close. And it was at that moment, my jaw dropped because she went so internal because the camera's here and that any gesture, if you blink, it's huge. So you have to be 100% internal. And I was just in awe watching that. And also the amount of preparation that it took. There was a moment where I think, she just needed time to herself. She literally faced a corner. And then this was as that scene was progressing. She faced the corner so she can get everything out of, her eye line. And then that's what she needed to enter that space for that scene. And I'm realizing that it wasn't something you should turn on and off, or you can turn on and off. For so many years, maybe it was just the roles that I was up for early on, I spent so much time mastering the art of the throwaway and acting, when your role is fairly, inconsequential. But as my roles become more challenging, I'm starting to have to readjust. And one day I'd love to have a role like she's got, where you really need that amount of work, but it pays off for anything really.
Wow, that's great. And again, thank you for mentioning it, because it is really different, and you have to modulate your performance depending on camera. So just I'm marveled by that, but by how you have to be from an actor's perspective, you have to embody the character, and at the same time understand the technical aspects and the professional things that you have to worry about from the mark, from the camera, from the different types of shots and coverages. That's high level
Right.
mastery. That's really
Absolutely. Cool. I was wondering if she's doing this consciously or not. I almost don't think so. I think it just comes so naturally at this point.
Wow. Again, I mean, I'm not surprised. I think the first time I saw her was with Tom was it? I don't remember if the first time was in the racing movie or in where they were, the Irish kind of immigrants, where I saw her first. But I remember kind of the first impression of thinking to myself, that's a really, really powerful actress from an emotional perspective. You can just see everything in her eyes. And I thought that's just very good energy. So I'm not surprised, but that's really cool to watch. And I guess from the perspective of being in a scene when you are paying such close attention and you're marveled by the performance, do you at any point kind of find yourself out of the scene and just kind of staring and thinking, wow, this is great, and forgetting a little bit that you are the character and you have your own role to play?
Actually, there were 100%, and there was a moment, actually in those same scenes, I guess, because those are the most intense. But there was, and also I shared the scene with, I play Edgar Ramirez's partner, and so there was a moment where Edgar was talking about how wonderful it is when everything does disappear, because it can be so distracting when there's the whole crew in the room. But we were talking about from an actor's point of view, and it was a wonderful conversation. I'll never forget it. But Edgar said, it's just so wonderful when the room disappears, and Nicole agreed, and she talked about just how deep she goes into the role, that your subconscious may or may not even recognize what's real and what's not. But they were just having this, high caliber conversation. And I actually said, and I probably shouldn't have said this, and my response, my addition to that conversation was, I just can't believe I'm here with you.
Yeah.
And they were both very sweet, but I admittedly, I'm the rookie on the court. So, but that also, going back to that conversation in particular, it was amazing. And we almost said that she said, and she was even talking about having done Big Little Lies with Meryl Streep, that it's so interesting that your subconscious may or may not realize what's happening, and an actor of her caliber can develop PTSD because again, your subconscious doesn't know what's real and what's not. So she said it's all about self-care and just finding escape from all that. She said, it's through jogging and time with her family, but you have to control that too. It's incredible to think about. I never thought about that level of acting.
And that's, one of my questions, and where you're going with your career is you're going to do more and more and hopefully get a chance to do those kind of roles. It's how do you find your way back to yourself? Because
Right.
that's where certain roles I just don't take because I don't know if I'm strong enough in order to find my way back and to kind of, leave all of that energy behind of the character that I'm playing. Because I'm goofy and that's kind of my baseline, but I get asked to play a lot of dramatic characters, and some of the dramatic characters I get asked to play have a lot of darkness, and it's the friendly neighbor who's going to kill you. It's that type of thing, and it's fun to play, but there's kind of that line, right? And there were a few times when I was offered a role of somebody who's a cult leader, and it's a person who takes pleasure in hurting others. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go in that energy because I don't know if I'm good enough at the moment to leave all of that and not let any of it affect who I am, then be able to kind of get rid of it. So the fact that Nicole, jogging and spending time with family, those are things that I'll kind of take. For me, it's meditation, it's music, it's all sorts of things that I do. So find your own way, because you'll have to do this at some point.
Yeah. In fact, I had an audition not long after we were shooting. It was for I shouldn't even say the name of the show, but it was one of the most emotional roles I'd ever auditioned for, and it was the role of a father whose son is brain dead, and the father has to make his last amends over the son's half dead body. And it was this beautiful monologue, and and it's in the script, says he begins to weep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a challenge. But I spent hours and hours, half that day, just trying to mentally prepare. And I didn't know if it was going to happen or not in the room. I was even, listening to, I've seen other actors do this. And the first time I tried it, putting in the earphones and listening to very sad music.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing like the epilogue from Les Miserables and there a couple other really songs that always made me cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that the headphones were very important just to avoid those distractions. Mm-hmm. And and I went in the room and I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I bawled and I left there going, yes. But it was the first time that I saw the effects of that level of preparation, and also that it's in me, it's possible to do. Because I would spend, sort of like meditation, you get to a point where your brain says, okay, meditating. And the moment you say that, you're taken out of it. And my mind would say, okay, I'm crying. And that would take me right out of it. But it was very reassuring to me. And I was quite proud of that, having reached that level where I actually no longer say, oh, look, I'm doing it.
Yeah. The next level after that is, the audition is great, and I'm really happy that you got there. The next level is doing that take after take after take on a set.
Yes, and I will say I did not get that part, but I didn't care. It was one of the best auditions I ever had, and I was worried whether or not if I did get the part, if I was able to do that. I don't know.
And right, that's the thing, right? And there are all sorts of kind of techniques that people use. There's breathing, there's emotions. Some people do substitution techniques. I found that substitution didn't really work for me because, I have kids. So I had to do a scene in which I was breaking down because the character's daughter committed suicide and he just found out about it. I immediately think of my daughter, boom, take 1, tears, I'm there. Take 2, less. Take 3, no tears. Take 4, it's starting to come back. So it was one of those kind of things. So it's not going to be on every take. At least it's not for me. And then you can use other things. You can use kind of a little stick to get some tears. I think it's called a tear stick. Maybe that's the actual name for it.
Yes. Yes.
There's breathing techniques. I think if you do like shallow breathing, your diaphragm kind of starts remembering, because our bodies are muscle memory, and it's all kind of chemical reactions that we're already used to. Just like with smiling, I've noticed and I've read that when you're sad, if you want to take yourself out of that, then it may feel like you're an idiot at the moment, but you basically do this,
Yeah.
and then you hold that for about 60 seconds, and then your body remembers, because it's a chemical reaction of what happens when you're physically smiling. So same thing with breathing. When you do this kind of shallow breathing, it gets your body into it. Like, I'm already feeling that I'm not there, but I'm closer to it. So there are all sorts of techniques that you can do that get you there, if emotional substitution does not get you there in every take. So workshops, reading, and just trying, but it's not easy, right? So what we do as actors is not easy, and this is just another
Yeah.
layer on top of all of that.
Yeah. And ever evolving. I think so much can be learned from when we were kids and we played fake sick to stay home from school.
Yeah.
Did you ever, I remember faking being sick. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching, but and after a day of acting sick, didn't you start to feel sick?
Yes. Yes.
It was crazy, right? And I go back to that, and there's a lot of so many lessons to be learned there, but there's some acting lessons to be learned there as well.
Yeah, because again, and you mentioned the subconscious. In a dream state, you can't really tell what's real and what's not real. When we're really into a show, I stopped watching some shows because, not clinically, I wasn't diagnosed with it, but I stopped watching some shows because I was getting to a point where I was getting PTSD.
Sure.
And I was expecting, lots of shows have this wonderful shot, which just drives me nuts, of somebody's driving and then boom, their car gets T-boned because they want that shock value. And it's a great shot. It's very cinematic. And after a point, you get to these dramatic shows like Scandal. You get to a point where you're expecting something bad to happen, and your body is in this, complete stress mode, where I had to withdraw myself from it, no matter how much I enjoyed the show, because I can't live like that. That's
Right.
not a healthy state to be in. So same thing with this, right? You fake something, but your body starts getting you to it, because your consciousness, in a way, projects an image, and you're walking towards it. So you're projecting yourself being sick. Guess what? That's why I always tell my kids, like, don't fake being sick, right? If you don't want to, do something, tell me about it. We're going to figure it out, but don't program yourself, because that programming is going to do its job. It's going to fire at some point.
That's great. That's good advice. Appreciate your care.
Yeah, and again, not that I'd never faked, being sick and not going to school, because that did happen many times. So, Dad and Mom, if you're watching this, it did many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more person that I wanted to mention on Undoing before we get to our next topic, which is Donald. Now I can't talk. Donald
Sutherland. Yes.
Who is amazing. I'm not sure that there is anything that he has done that I've seen him at that I did not think that's that caliber of actor that I am aspiring to maybe someday get close enough to. He's just awesome. What was he like to observe and interact with on set?
It was mainly observation, because there's only one scene that I share with him, and I don't have dialogue in that. Most of it goes to Edgar, but the one interaction I had with him, and I wasn't going to, hi, I'm Mike. I wasn't going to do that. I was, very respectful. And also, when you're not in the scene together, there's really, a way for him. But I thought it was actually kind of funny. One of the things an indulgence I bought for myself when I got The Undoing was I bought a very nice leather binder for my script.
Okay.
It was this soft leather with, the clasp. And I thought it looked very professional.
Mm-hmm.
And we were shooting we had courtroom scenes, so I was actually in those same scenes with him. But we all went back to our chairs, and he looked at my leather binder, and then he looked at me, and he said, "All this time I survived with just plastic." And I was just like, "Oh." So, and he didn't say "my dear boy," but he might as well have said "my dear boy." So that was my one interaction with Donald Sutherland. But as far as observation, he was great to watch, and because I don't have so many scenes with him, there are so many scenes that I'm now seeing in the series that I get to watch it along with the rest of the audience, and it's great. He's just so wonderful.
That's awesome. Very, very good. I'm definitely going to watch. It's not exactly my cup of tea in terms of the energy of it, but I am intrigued, and I definitely want to watch it. So
it's definitely intriguing. If anything, it's intriguing.
Yeah. So again, we're going to put a link below. It just came out October 25th. So everybody, please go and check it out. One role that I really did enjoy you in, because I have seen you before numerous times. I love Limitless. We're talking about the Limitless series. I loved Limitless movie as well, but the series I really enjoyed. I was bummed that it never got picked up for a second season, which is
right.
I don't know why. I'm sure ratings something, and I think when it kind of came out, maybe streaming wasn't as big because for whatever reason it never got picked up by a streaming service for season 2 and 3. But I loved it. It was great fun. I really enjoyed talking about the energy of the show. I really enjoyed the energy of Limitless, and I thought you were hilarious.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. I was very much playing something very close to myself in that one.
That's honestly, and this is the first time that we're speaking, but looking at you and kind of seeing your expressions, that's what I see. I see a lot of closeness to that character of Tech. That was the character's name.
Yeah.
And it's great. And then my brain goes into, but you had to be really serious for some roles, and you were a cop up until a few months ago.
Just a couple months ago, September 1st. That was my first day as a civilian in a long time.
Congratulations on a long career, and we'll get back to that in a second. But it's like it was one of those things. Like, is he more that, or is he more this? I'm glad to see that you're definitely more like the character that I liked on Limitless.
It was amazing. They wrote that not really, especially at first, not knowing me.
Yeah.
But and I was the real cop, correcting other people's grammar, and honing, staring at my computer and those were my real glasses, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, they wrote that not even knowing who I was, but they got it.
They got it. It was great, and I'm sure you got ribbing from your coworkers at that point. But the Bollywood dancing scene was awesome.
Thank you. Yes, in fact, my boss, he's like, whenever I felt like I was feeling a little down or needed to pick me up, I would pull up his Bollywood dancing scene.
That's great. I love it. How many?
My coworkers love that. Yeah.
Who wouldn't? I mean, it's great. How many takes did you have to go through on that scene? Because if it were me on set, I'd want this to be the entire day. It was just so much fun. That's all I'd want to do.
I think if I recall it, I think it was the entire day. We shot that over a weekend, which we don't normally shoot on weekends. And Saturday was the rehearsal, and Sunday was the shoot.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we spent the whole day on that. And it's funny because when it airs in the episode, it's like 10 seconds.
Right.
There's an extended cut of it where they show the whole thing.
I saw that.
But I remember the writers saying that they strive for every episode to do something that's never been done on television before. So I think that's where, and I remember reading it, because when you read the script, it's just a short paragraph, insert Bollywood dance number, and then bam, that's why you should read the stage directions.
Yeah.
But I'm like, wow. Yeah, it was so much fun. That whole thing was so much fun. I miss it. And I really wish it continued.
It's, there are certain shows, and again, keep coming back to my energy of the show and the shows that I like, but, Psych is that kind of show. Chuck is that kind of show. Limitless is that kind of show. It has a certain energy and feel to it. It's fun, it's playful, it doesn't take itself seriously, but that it has dramatic moments. It's interesting. There are a lot of things happening that you need to kind of follow. So it's that kind of the show that I really enjoy.
Yeah, we were kind of bummed, but it may just not have been right for CBS prime time. It might have been originally destined. It would have been better on Netflix originally because it skewed very young.
Yeah.
It's not the NCIS crowd.
No, yeah, it's a completely different feel.
Yeah.
I maybe they'll come back to it because again, I thought they were talking about doing season 2, and then Bradley was going to be involved in season 2 somehow. At least that's what I read. I don't know if any of that was true. Was there talk of Bradley being involved?
Well, he was involved from the start.
He was in. He was. I don't think he was in any of the scenes, right? So it was,
yes, no, he was.
Now I have to rewatch it. I don't remember Bradley being in it.
He's definitely in the pilot, and then he comes back a few times. In fact, I was in an episode where he was. I didn't have a scene with him, but he was featured prominently. Yeah, go back and catch a couple of that. And it's actually he's so good on it, and he's also a producer. He was a producer on it. But I think he was. There was a news article on how he himself wanted to bring it further and find a new platform for it.
Thanks.
That's
so. I hope he does. I hope he does.
I hope he does too.
It was a great show, and now I feel like a moron because I didn't remember him being on there. So Bradley, if you're watching, my apologies. I'm gonna go and rewatch it, and now would be a great time because I'm about to finish Queen's Gambit. So I need.
That looks great.
Isn't it awesome? Did you watch it yet?
I only saw the preview, and I'm like, I need to set aside some time to watch this, but it's on my queue. I can't wait. That'll be next.
It's great, and it's a mini series, so it's a limited release. It's only 7 episodes. I'm pretty sure on that. I don't need to look that up. So it's 7 episodes. I'm 5 in, so I have 2 more to go. I invited everybody to come onto my program. One person already agreed, and this was this morning. So I'm gonna get to talk about Queen's Gambit, which is amazing. By the way, people check it out if you can. But I need kind of the break because I watched another episode right before I went to bed, and then I was dreaming about chess the whole night. So I need something lighter, and Limitless would be a perfect thing for that. So I'll go and rewatch it. Good. My number 2 favorite comedy of all time, Psych, is number 1. Number 2 is the Marvelous Mrs Maisel, where you get a chance to play. You were in 1 episode. But you got some fun as Sal, I believe, is Saul. Sal. Yeah.
It's New York, Sal.
What was that like? Because again, I know you're a New Yorker. I know you love acting. So being in that environment, and I'll come back to kind of my experiences in a second. But being in that environment on Mrs. Maisel, what was that like?
It was fantastic. It truly was, and it was such a fun role, and I got to interact with all the main characters, including Jane Lynch, who's like walking sunshine. She's amazing. So another down to earth. They're all wonderful people, but she's like walks in the room and you don't need lighting. So it was, and also it was like walking into a time capsule because we're shooting on the set of it's a telethon. As you know, but for the listeners, it's a telethon. So in every direction that we're looking, you can't tell our cameras from there. So it really was like walking into a time capsule. The audience is in 1959 attire, and the role was just fun. It was a challenge because it was so fast. The dialogue is intentionally because they even say that being on television moves pretty fast. So the joke was everything was just so fast. So, but it was that was a challenge because you don't want to screw up lines.
No. And Rachel was kind of in the pilot. Rachel's ending scene was kind of as I started really pursuing acting seriously again, because again it comes in waves, and I finally said, okay, I'm at a point where I really need to pursue this seriously, and I was literally sweating and thinking, can I ever get to that point where I have to say that amount of lines with that type of variation where you have to be humorous and dramatic all at the same time? Am I doing the wrong thing here? Can I get there? So it was kind of at that point where I didn't know if I could do that. And just watching Rachel blew my mind. So aside from just loving the show as a person, as an actor, it was a show that I had to watch for many, many beats of it.
She is incredible. And I actually, there was a funny moment because, you know, I didn't know that she knew this, but we were in the telephone and she just walked up to me and she goes, "I hear you're a cop." And I was like, how did you know that? I didn't know that you knew that.
Yep.
But yeah, there was some, one of the other guys in that episode, his other half is actually a cop that I work with.
Ah,
So that's what started that conversation.
okay.
And so normally, if I'm not, I don't offer that information. But in that episode, he and I got to talking, so I guess it got around. But I thought it was really cute and funny when she said, "I hear you're a cop."
Yeah, that's very cool. I
Cute.
love Rachel. She went to an acting center, that I studied at. She, I don't know if she still lives, but she grew up about 20 minutes away from where I live now.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Anyway, being a cop, I wanted to come to that because um, when as an actor, and you started as an actor first.
Right.
Your first love was acting, and then you went and you had a career as a police officer, which is surprising, right? One would think that you start and then you kind of transition doing some, as you said, throwaway, which they're not throwaway. They're good roles, and we all kind of get to do these. It's not a guest star. Now my brain is firing in all different directions. It's a co-star role.
Co-star, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So you started out as an actor, then you became a police officer, and then you got back into acting. The question for me is when, during the time when you were again kind of away from acting and having a career as a police officer, when did you say, "Hey, you know what? I kind of need this back into my life, and I'm gonna do whatever amount of it that I can fit in"? When did that happen?
It was um, it was September 11th, 2001,
Oh,
and I, along with so many other people, almost every person, realized how precious and how fleeting life could be. And I remember being very grateful to have lived through that time period and saying, "Okay, let me think of what I need to do in this short life that I have."
mhm.
And I had always knew that I was going to return to acting,
Hmm.
but that was the inciting incident that I said, "Oh wait, let me just work on some goals and try to fulfill those dreams." So it was shortly after 9/11 that I returned to acting.
Yeah, it's an incredibly traumatic time. Obviously, I think you were a first responder. Being in New York, being a New York cop at that time. Yeah, I can't even imagine what that's like. I know what our experiences were in Chicago, and they were dramatic enough,
Right.
with not having anything hit, but just worrying because I lived in downtown at that time. We lived right next to what used to be the Amoco building, which is the Aon building, which is very tall, and it's right on the lakefront. And my wife worked in the Prudential Towers, which is right next to it. So I was driving to do a class in the suburbs, and then we heard it. We got to a class. Obviously, class was canceled, and then I remember rushing back downtown to pick up my wife as everybody was going away from downtown because we thought, God forbid, if somebody strikes it, it's Sears Tower, and then right, the second target would be where we live.
Right.
So it was incredibly traumatic from every perspective. I can't even understand what it would be like in New York at that time.
It was awful. I mean, every moment of it. Well, I shouldn't say every moment because so much, in a weird way, there was so much. There was goodness
Mhm.
that rose out of it in that we saw the best in humanity and we came together.
Yeah.
So there was some beautiful moments, and it strengthened us, and unlike the world today, um, we were we were so united. It was really, that living like September 12th. So that was great. And I'm proud of having gone through that and emerged as a stronger person. So there's definitely good things, but it was god awful.
Yeah. I remember you mentioning on one of your interviews that I've listened to beforehand, is that a while after that, maybe 5 years after that, you realized that you had PTSD.
Yeah.
Do you still have effects of it? Is that something that stays, or do you feel okay now?
I don't feel okay now. I mean, the NYPD is wonderful in that they have so many methods to treat officers who have emotional issues.
Mm.
I was able to, 5 years later, I was able to say, okay, I need a timeout.
Mm.
And there was an organization where they pulled you out. I went, intensive therapy for a few months, and then, and slowly worked me back in. And it did take me years, and now it's just sort of, I think all of us that were there, who were there, have, it's a lingering pain. And it's the day itself is very somber, and we quietly now here in 2020 we'll quietly send each other texts, thinking of you today, and
Yeah.
I get a lot of texts in return. But those among my peers who I shared those moments with, we still connect, and I think it's still very painful. And you look at police officers and first responders, firemen and EMS and all first responders. You look at them as inhuman. And a lot of times you're asked to be that. You're asked to shut off all emotionality. But when you see it from the inside and you look at cops as, because I was a cop, I looked at cops as humans. You see a side to them that no one sees, and you see how breakable and how fallible, and they bleed, they cry. I've seen cops break down in tears. I've seen things that you would never expect from a police officer, and just how human they are. So, which is why my perspective is and that of other first responders can be a bit different from the rest of the world, who have, one or two either run-ins with police or global incidents, which they think define us, when in fact they don't. I see 1,000 moments per day, which I think define us.
Listen, I'm a white man, so for me to speak with any level of understanding of what other people's experiences may be is just silly. But
me too. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No.
I'm clearly a white man too. So I think right now, people have asked me, especially in some of these interviews, what my feelings are on the state of 2020 right now, and my answer really is that it's my time to shut my mouth and listen. So my perspective is I don't have much to say. This is the time I need to listen.
Yeah, for me, again, I certainly had an experience with a police officer that was not great, and the police officer was, lying in essence, and it was not a great experience. But it didn't color all police officers for me as bad. There are people in all walks of life that we encounter that are good people, and there are not good people. I don't know why I should judge somebody, if I have a bad experience with somebody who's different color from mine. Why does that mean that everybody is the same? It doesn't work like that. That's a stupid way of looking at it. So
Very important.
I tend to look at police officers in a very, very positive light, from the perspective of you're literally going out there trying to help people and to make sure that me and my family and everybody around us is safe. Why wouldn't I have anything other than gratitude for it? And I can't relate. I can only imagine how difficult it would be, because, again, you're like an actor, right? You're putting yourself in a situation where you're dealing constantly with stress. So it is not something that's healthy. It is not something that is easy to do. It's a sacrifice that somebody is making in order to protect others. I can't view it in any other way than to say thank you. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's important, because we're asked not to stereotype. It's great to hear that, people don't stereotype us. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, and I'm sure it's easier said than done, right? In any walk of life, we're colored by our experiences. So if somebody keeps having the same experience over and over again, you can ask them all you want not to stereotype, but it's programming, and we talked about it. So it's a very complicated issue. But my hope, without judgment or anecdotal evidence to the opposite, my hope is that people will treat everybody as people, not based on anything else. It's just, we're all people, we're all humans, and let's stay on that base, because I think that'll be a way to connect to each other. So
Absolutely. Well said.
yeah. Being a cop and playing a cop, from the acting perspective, when I have been taking acting workshops, or talking to people who are casting directors, or talking to people who are acting teachers, I hear more than a few times that you, especially for co-star roles, you should play the profession. You're not there to show your enormous range as a performer. You're there to play the profession, right? If you're playing a cop, then you have your 5 and under, or you have your lines. Maybe it's a couple of scenes, but play the profession. Just be you, or a believable you in that circumstance. So being somebody who is a police officer that goes to an audition for a police officer as you are starting out, did you find it easier or more difficult?
But I generally found it easier, and I knew that there was a markability in being a cop with a degree in acting.
Yeah.
So, and I knew that I needed to get credits on my resume, and I needed to get into the union. So, I mean, this is very early on. So, and I remember thinking that, okay, this is what I bring to the table. This is my packaging.
Yeah.
So I remember my first headshot looked just like a detective, and I did a headshot in uniform. So I gave them that in spades.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember approaching my first agent saying, I'm a cop with a degree in acting, and I've not had an audition for Law and Order.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put it into his head, thinking, well, I can get you an audition for Law and Order.
Right.
And that's how I got my first agent, and he did. And Law and Order is one of the first shows that I booked. So I think, well, actually, there was a period where I realized I tried to act.
Mm.
I tried to act at the audition.
Yeah.
And even though, like I've said a few times, my degree's in acting, I studied theater. So it was a bit of a tougher transition for me. This kind of goes back to the size of the performance we talked about earlier. I would go into the audition and play to the room.
Mm.
The body is this way. And I realized that, no, the camera's right here. I have to play to the camera. And it was wasn't a tough, but there was definitely a learning curve there. And it was Law and Order. And this actors might find this was a learning experience for me. I auditioned, I think, a couple times for Law and Order, but it was a pre-read. They'll occasionally do a pre-read, and I sat with Suzanne Ryan, who was casting the original Law and Order at the time, and we were just talking about life itself and the weather, and very conversational, the way you and I are speaking right now. And then she said, "Oh, and what are your lines?" And I went from the conversation right into the lines. So, and I booked that Law and Order because it was where I made the connection in my head that this is not acting. This is small. It's conversational, and it's when you go in and you think you're doing a Shakespearean soliloquy that you don't get it, because they don't want to see that. So to bring it back to your original question, it took me a bit of an adjustment, but I learned to be real.
Good. Yeah.
Whether it's as a cop or it's as a human.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying, or any character, I should say.
I get you. No, that's great. And me, loving martial arts, I have to ask that question. Being a cop, what type of, if you're allowed to say that, if you're not, then don't worry about it. But what type of martial arts were they teaching you? Because it's not about kata when you're a cop. It's about practical application of it. So what were they teaching you, and what did you find useful in a real scenario?
Well, the only thing that martial arts terms came into play was we had something called verbal judo, which is, and that's true. It's
Okay.
about de-escalation, and it's
Sure.
verbal judo is more important than real judo.
Yeah.
And we had tools on our tool belt which didn't involve hand-to-hand combat. So thankfully, we learned some self-defense, but it was verbal judo that superseded anything. It's basically, is there anything that I can do or say to get you to comply? And that was the line that we were taught. Is there anything I can do or say to get you to comply? It's verbal judo, and what is that response, and then what is your response in return? So de-escalation's been taught for decades, but it's so much more important than real judo.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, the role is to avoid conflict, not get into it, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. So everybody, we should start learning as a martial artist. We should start learning de-escalation techniques as well, which
Yeah.
it's good. I always, my son is 11 years old, and he did a few years of taekwondo, and I really want him to kind of progress and do other types of martial arts. And he keeps on saying, well, I don't want to fight anybody. I said, that's the point.
Yeah.
The point of taking martial arts is so you don't fight anybody, because you realize that you can protect yourself. Again, maybe it's all relative, but you realize just how much damage you can do to somebody and how much damage they can do to you, and you don't want to do that. So it's really that. So
Yeah, it's huge.
okay, I wanted to ask you, in terms of kind of, we touched on the acting approach. We touched on the different ways that you get kind of through the character, right? What's interesting to me is more on the outside of that. So as a person, right? So everybody has their identification. So you identified yourself as an actor. Then there was a point of your time that you identified yourself as a police officer. Where are you? And if somebody asks you to define who you are, where would you be right now? Are you an actor? Are you Mike? Are you a former police officer? Who are you?
Lately, it's for the first time in my life, I'm saying I'm an actor. You go to the dentist, or what do you do? What do you do? I'm an actor. But then that also leads into what have I seen you on? But it depends. Maybe I've only been retired 2 months, and also I didn't always say that I'm a cop. It depends the situation I'm in. I almost never would say I'm a cop. I wouldn't say that. I mean, we've learned to say I work for the city, or I sell insurance or something like that. Or there were times where I said I'm an actor, but I don't know. I have an identity crisis, but it's nice to be able to say, I'm an actor.
Yeah, because I would imagine that it's freeing, and it feels good to say that you're an actor, and then to be able to answer the follow-up of where have I seen you on? Well, you've seen me on Limitless, Mrs. Maisel, and now you see me on HBO. It feels great.
It does. It does. I'm very proud.
Good. Well, congratulations. I'm very happy. I'm very happy for you there.
Thank you.
Last question for you. If you had a chance to kind of go back and talk to a young Mike who is pursuing acting and thinks that he's going to be an actor when you were getting your education, and you were able to give one piece of acting advice, what would it be now?
Actually, maybe that's where I got the whisper in my ear, but the advice that I got was secure a pension first.
Good idea.
Then you can go into acting.
Yeah. I like it. That's the first time somebody has mentioned that. I like it. Secure a pension first.
Not to disillusion anyone, but acting, even it hit me in my. I was fortunate to know a lot of people who were actors, and I knew a Tony winner who couldn't find a job, and not because he was untalented. Quite the opposite. It's just that there's not enough work to go around, and things open and things close. So the stability of that career is, from a practical standpoint, is non-existent. So if you can do anything else, do it. And if you can find something to do that you can bring to the table and mesh the careers, do that too.
Yeah, very good. Well, I would love for you to come back for another episode because we did not get a chance to talk about your music and your singing. And I have to tell you, by the way, the first time that I listened to your music, if I didn't know it was you, Josh Groban immediately came to mind because there is a very similar tonality in your voices. So
Oh, thanks.
we didn't get a chance to talk about any of that. And I know you have an album. I know you have one that's about to come out. So please come back again so we can continue our discussion.
Absolutely, I would love to. And thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. And thanks to everybody for tuning in into another episode of The Love of Acting. Please go and check out The Undoing. I'm going to go and rewatch Limitless and enjoy your weekend. Take care, everybody.